in screwballing as well.
Well, I have this fun game that I'm trying to make everyone love. It's called Cookie Puss.
What?
And if you go to my Cookie Puss, if you go to Mark DeCarlo TV on Instagram, you'll see me do it. I did it. We were on a Norwegian Air 11, 12-hour flight back, and you get a little punchy. You sit down, you put an Oreo on your forehead, and then without using your hands, you try and use your face muscles to move it down into your mouth. And whoever can do it the fastest wins.
And I watched you do that.
Yeah,
and of
11
course,
seconds. It's the airline record.
That's funny. So, but Cookie Puss, of course, is the reference to the childhood favorite from Carvel ice cream. If you were from a region of the world that had a Carvel ice cream, Cookie Puss was one of those childhood favorites. It was a birthday cake, an ice cream cake in the shape of, I don't know, some kind of creature. Once it started melting, it just, it was just an ice cream cake. But it was called Cookie Puss, and that's where this is from.
Yeah. Right, but it's totally different now. This is just us trying to get a cookie in your mouth as quickly as possible, and I've done it. I have the sea level record at 13 seconds, and the airline record being aloft at 11 seconds.
Because that enhances the gravity of the cookie falling from your forehead into your mouth.
It's pretty complicated stuff, but yes, I think you're right.
All right, let me ask you this question. You've never invited me to take the Cookie Puss challenge. Why is this?
I would love, you know what? Do it today and post it on my Instagram.
Well,
it has to be an Oreo, though.
It has to be an Oreo. Okay. I will find an Oreo. So I have MS, and what's funny about that is like every fifth muscle in my face is paralyzed, which
I did not know that.
Which on the surface you kind of can't really tell because my face is only a little bit droopy, but what's going to happen is the cookie's going to be like, shimmy my eyebrow, getting it halfway there, and then it's going to hit like a dead patch, and then it's going to be like sitting on my cheek for like 11 seconds. And you'll be like, "Come on, Jen, you can do it." I'm like, "Oh yeah, I can do it." And I'll be like telling my cheek to twitch, and I'll be going, "Come on!" And then I'll like shimmy my shoulders a little bit, hoping that the momentum from that part of the body's movement might loosen the cookie. But it's going to hit that patch on my cheek, and it's going to be like, flatline, right?
Is it on both cheeks?
No,
Is one cheek more mobile than the other?
See, but that would make it. Then I could maneuver around the dead spots.
Right.
So
there's a lot of different people shake their heads. There's a lot of different styles. That's what makes Cookie Puss so universal.
Well,
everyone one guy could just flip it up like a dog and catch it in his mouth. I've seen that.
I might have better success with that, and I do have a relatively large mouth. What a surprise.
Insert joke here.
Or a cookie. and so
right.
The likelihood that I'd be able to maneuver my mouth into position to capture the cookie might make up for the fact that the musculature that you employ with those fine facial twitches and twinges that come from a really well-honed and well-trained actor's visage, I might be competitive in the fullness of this contest, is all I'm saying.
I welcome the competition. My friend Pat Brady calls me Shar-Pei Man because I have so much extra skin on my face.
Well, you've got
I'm at a disadvantage as well.
Well, you've got a lot of very interesting things going on in your face. I mean, you've got a very fine face. You've got a good-looking face. You got a nice kisser. But I have to say, watching you do this, it was even surprising to me. I was mesmerized, and I actually watched it a couple of times because I couldn't believe what I was seeing.
And that's after 10 hours in the air. If you catch me fresh first thing in the morning, I'm really sharp. But what I love about the video is the lady behind me just could not.
She couldn't contain herself.
Care less. What was going on.
So listen, before we get to our first guest, because Doug Kirby's on the line and he's called in to be with us today, because I'm excited to have him here because he's the roadside guy, and we're going to learn some stuff from him that's going to be a lot of fun. But I did something really cool because you've inspired me. And I went to an improv experience, and it was so fun that I talked to them about taking a couple classes and maybe joining them doing improv in order to enrich, embellish, and enhance our performances together, because life with you on the air really is nothing more than improv. As much preparation as go into our broadcasts.
Yeah.
because this is a fork on the road. And not only are we being heard live on AM 1030 The Voice, trusted local news and talk in Southern Arizona, on the Bustos Media Group, and on the World Wide Web on kvoi.com, we go one step further because we do not rest, and we are broadcast in the podcast format of the Food and Beverage Podcast Network, where we are joining some of the most acclaimed and fun podcasts in the realm of food and drink in the country being produced today.
Yes, this is a fork on the road, and this is a great show today. We got Doug Kirby from Roadside America and Pat Kanuski from the Creation Museum, two great things that you can do while you're traveling. Improvising is traveling. What you do on the radio is improvising. You know, you plan to a certain degree. People hear improv and they get all weirded out and they think, oh my God, it's so difficult. But people improvise every day. Every time you talk to someone, you don't know what they're going to say to you.
No.
And then they say it, and then you listen and you respond. The difference in doing it as a career is you're not responding as yourself. You're responding as a character that you're playing, a plumber or a pilot or whatever it happens to be. And that you can learn, but I would strongly suggest that you take improv classes. They're nothing but fun.
Nothing but fun. And by the way, I think people get intimidated because that tall guy that looks like a human beaker Muppet from the Drew Carey show that had that improv
My friend
show.
Ryan Stiles.
Ryan Stiles.
One of the funniest human beings on the planet.
Right, one of your funniest friends ever. We've got to get him on.
Yes.
Because I want him to give me some tips about, should I stick my toe into these improv waters? Do I have what it takes, or am I just going to be the lame straight man in the group to, work around?
Well, first of all, you got to change your perspective there. You're assuming that you're going to suck. Yeah.
No, I'm not assuming. No. I'm not assuming I'm going to suck. I'm going to be awesome. It's just everyone's going to be better.
Well, let's not go crazy. You know what? It's great training for living a fun life and just being, a lot of shy people take it. A lot of business people, when I go and I do corporate events, I'll do little side breakout sessions, and we teach business people improvising techniques because it's a tool that everyone, regardless of your job or life, it's something that can help you and be more expressive and living more in the moment and having more fun with your life.
Mark, what is the one thing I like to do more than eat?
Laugh.
That's right. Now, can you imagine me doing some improv classes and then becoming my own roadside attraction?
I think you could.
I think you could.
You could be the queen of Cookie Puss, Tucson, Arizona.
There's a woman sitting in a box like those tiny libraries they have outside of someone's house. The tiny lending library, which is like a birdhouse with like 11 books in it. I'll be sitting in one of those and be like a tiny roadside attraction. This woman sitting in a box eating Oreos off her face. And there'll be like 80 Oreos at the floor around this little sad chair. Now that's a roadside attraction.
Doug might want to put on his website.
Well, let's ask him whether that might be the case.
Let's do that. Doug Kirby, welcome to A Fork on the Road. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, guys. It's great to be here.
Hey, thanks, Doug. I don't mean to make you listen to that and say, what did I say yes to? We're thrilled to have you here.
Well, no, and I was already thinking about if you put your box out in the middle of a desert or somewhere where people have to really go to trouble to see you, they're going to, it's going to heighten the expectations. You're going to have your T-shirts and your postcards all ready to
you need a gift shop.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. What, like that thing along Highway 95 on the road from the Northeast down to Florida?
South of the border.
South of the border. Yeah, here's the problem.
Yeah, you're not going to win a trivia contest with Doug.
No. I want Doug to win. Listen, when I'm on Who Wants to Be a Millionaire again, he's going to be my phone-a-friend for all this stuff. But, Doug, I got to ask you the question. You do know that if you put me in the box in the middle of the desert waiting for people to come and find me, what they're going to find is a skeleton.
Yes, I know. I was thinking about maybe you'd like a cooler, like a cave or something. Have people go down in an elevator 300 feet underground to
That's
see you.
funny. That is so funny. So it begs the question, Doug, what is the strangest thing on the side of the road that you've encountered in your career, and how do you explain it?
Well, that's a really unfair question.
I'm sorry.
No, and we pretty much every trip I've taken, there's always something amazing I'll see. We might have a bad day here or there, but there's always just something where you just can't believe it. And, that's one of the things we do when we look at attractions. We say, did it make you laugh? Is it the thing you go home and, go to the office and talk about or tell your family about? And a lot of times that'll drive what we consider the best thing. And, over time, some of these things you get a little jaded about seeing the giant twine ball or something like that. But we're pretty amazed that there's always something new out there to be found.
Doug, what's the common thread that things have that are so compelling that they'll pull us off our planned route? What does something have to get us to go out of our way?
That's interesting. Well, if you've got kids in the background, it's the horrible screaming until you get off the exit to look at the statue or the free tourist attraction or whatever it happens to be. So there are a lot of different appeals that these places have. We found on if you do interstate travel, which is sort of against the spirit of the 2-lane highway back road kind of approach, but you can still find things along an interstate that are going to be worth pulling off. So if you see a Jolly Green Giant statue looming off in the distance, you're going to look for that exit to get off and take a look at it.
And there is such a thing, and I saw it recently in a movie. What was the movie I just saw that in? Because it just made an appearance.
Yeah, well, it's in Blue Earth, Minnesota. That's a great one. That was put up for the bicentennial, I believe, a long time ago.
And nothing says bicentennial like a Jolly Green Giant.
Yes. So, and some of these things, it's interesting. Some of these attractions pop up just out of spontaneously. You don't know why they're there, who had the idea. And then other times you'll see something and you'll find out, oh, this person was on vacation and they saw a weird religious grotto somewhere, and then they got so inspired they went back to their town and needed to build one. So we see a lot of that interesting, reflection going on between ideas and, you see things like the classic plywood cutout where you stick your head in the hole and you're...
Can't get enough of those.
Yeah. So it's almost like if you don't have those, there's something wrong with your attraction. So everybody knows you got to do those things once you get people to pull off into the parking lot.
Doug Kirby, the roadside guy, is with us. And this isn't a new phenomenon. In fact, when they were trying to stimulate rail travel and travel in general in a different era, there has always been an expertise developed around luring people to come where you are. And sometimes it was through beautiful vistas, like they used to get people to travel to the Grand Canyon or to Banff and Lake Louise. And then sometimes there are very strange things that really defy description, like the Corn Palace. But there's a very nostalgic quality to many of these things, like a time ago, the land that time forgot. Are we still today creating new screwball roadside attractions? Are there anything that is relatively new that would make the cut, that would get us to go out of our way?
Oh, yeah. Oh, definitely. In fact, it's interesting because a lot of times we'll have a discussion like this and people take a position that it's all gone away, and when Route 66 was decommissioned, that was the end of everything. And weirdly enough, we started working on our first book about this as Route 66 was being decommissioned. So we didn't really talk about that road much. We were really just looking at what was still out there, what was very active, and what was up and coming. And we found just over the decades, new ideas appear, old ones are recycled. Families will, a good idea that was created in the 1950s has gone through 2 more generations. If you've got a bunch of concrete dinosaurs on your property, they're too hard to demolish, so you might as well just keep reviving them as a business, and kids love dinosaurs.
Doug Kirby, the roadside guy, is with us. Mark DeCarlo joins me. This is A Fork on the Road every Wednesday in hour number 2 of our time together here on AM 1030 The Voice. We will be back with more right after this. You are listening to KVOI.com, your trusted source for local news and talk. We'll be right back. Mark, those spoons are for you, baby. Do you know that those magical spoons that he makes by hand are the most beautiful things I've ever seen, and they're actually more magic wand than wooden spoon?
What kind of magic can he do with them?
They're limitless. I'm not
like if Harry Potter was going to make a soup, that's what he would use? Those spoons.
Exactamente. Can I tell you, we are here. This is Around the Table Live. Every Wednesday with Mark DeCarlo, we are a fork on the road, a podcast dedicated to taking you and having more fun on the road trips that you are destined to take, inspired to take, and thanks to Mark with the tips and the suggestions that he has for us. Not only will you go a little off the beaten path, you will find yourself along the way. For that, I'm enormously grateful to welcome him back and for the privilege of being his co-host on this show. Thank you.
Oh, Jennifer, you're too sweet. This is a good show, too. It's kind of like a road trippy show. We've got Doug Kirby from Roadside America a little bit later on. We got Pat Kanuski from the Creation Museum in Kentucky. Doug, now people may not know that roadsideamerica.com is your site. You've written a series of really great handbooks, travel books. Your app is really great, Roadside America. Let's talk about some of the things you're featuring this week on your site, because some of them tickled me, and I'd like to know a little bit more about them. First of all, road trip to the moon. Obviously, everyone, hopefully, has been steeped in nostalgia for Apollo 11 these past few weeks. I watched that Apollo 11 documentary, which is fantastic. How do you road trip to the moon, Doug?
Well, we realized we're science nerds, and when we're traveling, if we see something that's a science attraction or a astronaut attraction, we're always stopping by. And so for this anniversary, we thought, let's round them all up. So we found the 80 sort of oddball road trip type of things you could see that were things either brought back from the moon or helped us get to the moon. So, for instance, if you go to there's the USGA Golf Museum in New Jersey, you can see the golf club that Alan Shepard swung on the moon. And
was that a 2-iron or a 6-iron?
I think it was a 6-iron. And he actually couldn't get the pole, so he had to use his rock plucking pole as the pole for the head of the club. But just weird things like that. Or Ham, if you're a fan of the early astronaut chimps, Ham is the name of a very famous chimp that went up into orbit. And there are all kinds of little dedications to him, and you can go to the U.S. Air Force Museum in Ohio and see all his undergarments are on display under glass.
That's funny.
Wait a minute. So you can see a chimp's underwear?
Yes. I mean, there's a lot of weird stuff.
Off the road for.
Yeah, the Nixon Museum in Yorba Linda, California. It's all presidential stuff. But if you look carefully, you'll see they've actually got the speech that Nixon was going to give if the guys couldn't get off the moon, if the ship broke or if there was some disaster. And so he had a speech all ready to go.
You know what's funny, Mark? I've actually been to the Chimp Underpant Museum, and the thing that's most startling and shocking and worth going out of your way for is actually the size of the underpants. They're enormous, and you would have thought that the chimps would have been very small, but they're really surprisingly large.
Well, and they made their asses look big. That's why kids didn't like them.
It was a perspective, because it was the moon. You see, we were going to the moon. Listen, Doug, I got to tell you.
Museum of Dumb Guy stuff?
No. I want to talk
Museum of Dumb Guy stuff. What is that?
So that's a brand new one. My buddy and co-editor Ken Smith just interviewed these guys. It's a couple of guys basically in a man cave basement who are making little dioramas of all the things they remember from their childhood, and they've put a flag out on the street to try to entice people to come in to the museum. So it's like a totally home built, no idea of whether it's a business or a hobby, and they're hoping to get more people to come and look at it, and it is fun stuff. So we put it up on the website and figured we'll try to help get them a little bit of traffic.
That's funny. Listen, Doug, Mark, I've got to tell you about the place that to this day, no matter where I've gone, even the Underpant Museum, the thing that I tell people about as one of the strangest experiences I've ever had is the Tragedy in U.S. History Museum in St. Augustine, Florida. It remains the pinnacle of this category for me.
Yes, I saw it. Oh, that was very early, and then it closed. But yeah, that was great. It had the Jane Mansfield death car. It had Lee Harvey Oswald's bedroom furniture, and it had a sign next to the bedroom furniture telling you that I think it cost them $100 to buy the furniture.
The degrees of strangeness cannot be
That's what
contextualized.
I love about travel. Who had the idea of, well, we got to get Lee Harvey Oswald's bedroom furniture? And then when you get off the road and you're staring at it, I mean, isn't a part of your brain going, what the hell am I doing here?
Well, and part of it is some museums or some attractions are a little random. It's like what they've got that they liked, and then they try to put it together in some way. Yeah, and then other places are very, very laser focused. A museum just about barbed wire or just about salt and pepper shakers, and you'll go in there and you'll just see somebody who just spent their whole life collecting tens of thousands of salt and pepper shakers.
Doug, I was going to ask you, how important are collectors and collecting to this category for you? And what does it say about who we are?
They are, we were looking at them before everybody started referring to them as hoarders. So, we were appreciating them as people who had a passion and then made a museum, and there are still many great collections out there. And some of them, it's interesting now, some of the collectors will point out to us that they never go online, because I think there's a sense that if you go online, you're just going to buy the stuff, and there's
no more hunt.
Yeah, there's no going to the yard sales or, going far and wide to find something.
Hey, listen, Doug, one of the things I have to mention is, if you haven't been, the Chihuly Museum in Seattle actually has a restaurant, and the Chihuly restaurant has a series of his collections under diorama-style tables. So all his transistor radios, all his toy cars from the 1930s, all of, fill in the blank, fountain pens. And it really is evocative to see how the eye, pardon the reference here, but how the eye and the soul of the artist sees the beauty in the ordinary objects of everyday life. And to me, there's always a lesson or a message when I visit there. I'm wondering, is there a common thread or message that you see among the places that make it to your list?
Well, for the there's a commercial aspect of a lot of these things. People create these things sometimes because it's the way they make money. But other people, it'll start as a passion of collecting and or gaining knowledge, and they'll realize they've got such a mass of it now. They want to share it with the world.
Like the Mustard Museum.
Or you go to the classic, the twine ball. Like, that's the silliest thing you would think, to wind twine, but you get to a point where it's all of a sudden it's the world's largest twine ball. So there's all these things that people create out there. If you build a house that looks like a shoe, because you're in the shoe business, well, there's a commercial aspect because you're maybe a person who is marketing shoes, but at some point that becomes a landmark in the area, and then it becomes nationally known.
And who are we to judge? I mean, Mark, honestly, we're a generation who's spending all our time playing video games. Who are we to judge what's a waste of time anymore,
Well, and you know what? When I was doing the Travel Channel show, we would visit all these places on our ways from one place to another, and we'd shoot at some of them. And what I loved about them is that the individuals who were running these places, without exception, were interesting, offbeat people who, what makes you make the world's biggest twine ball? I don't know, but
having a lot
this
of
is
twine.
what I did it. Right, and you hear their story, and they're all interesting, real people and they're experiences that you can't get unless you travel outside of your comfort zone. I mean, the toilet seat art museum. That guy Barney Smith just passed away last week. Tell us about that place. This is a museum about art on toilet seats, right?
Yes. Yeah, so Barney was a retired plumber. I believe he might have just passed away yesterday, and he was great. You would go and knock on his door, and he'd come out and open up the big doors of his garage, and you'd look in, and he's got 1,000 toilet seats in there. And when you look at what he's got, the art he's done on them, it's like he was scrapbooking using the toilet seat as a page. So there'd be a toilet seat for something in the news that he heard about, or a wedding anniversary. Every wedding anniversary he had a toilet seat for, and all these toilet seats. If you didn't have Barney, he was a great character to talk you through each of these, but you could also look at these and say, wow, that's when Barney had all that dental work, because all the things from the dentist's office are glued to that toilet seat. And no, there's when Barney had this other surgical procedure, because he got all the things from the hospital. So it's really fun. And he was a plumber. He wasn't a guy who went out to say, I'm an artist and, look at me, I'm doing all this artwork. He was just a guy doing something that he thought was going to be of fun and interest to him, and then other people, of course, loved it.
Doug Kirby from Roadside America, we are thrilled you're here, and I'm going to give you something that we're going to apply to this as the test of what's worth going out of your way for. It is at the end of the conversation saying something like, boy, I'm very glad I met you. We will share that sentiment with you. Thank you for taking the time to be here with us. We have really had a lot of fun with this, and we look forward to following more of what you guys do. Tell everybody one more time where your website is.
So it's roadsideamerica.com, and we have an iPhone app called Roadside America.
And if there was one thing you wanted to make sure we don't miss when we're going out in August, what is the August highlight going to be, do you think?
Oh, let me just pick something randomly. Vent Haven, the Ventriloquist Dummy Museum. You want to go there. It's in Fort Mitchell, Kentucky. You'll be sitting in a room full of hundreds of creepy ventriloquist dummies.
I love that, and it's so creepy I can't even address
funny
it.
Voices.
Oy. All right. Doug Kirby, thank you. We're going to take a very quick break. More A Fork on the Road up next. Patrick Kanuski is going to be with us, and I am thrilled about this. I love the idea of where creativity comes from. And Mark, tell us a little bit about Patrick.
Pat runs a place called the Creation Museum, which is in Kentucky, and it's a kind of an alternative history museum from the perspective of all the history that's included in the Bible. So it's a I believe an evangelical history of the world.
That sounds cool.
They have they have dioramas and exhibits, and it's something that you would definitely stop for.
All right.
So
well,
we're going to talk to him right after this.
We're going to be back with more right after this. You are listening to A Fork on the Road on AM 1030 The Voice, trusted local news and talk, and on the Food and Beverage Podcast Network. We'll be right back. This is A Fork on the Road. You are tuned in to AM 1030 The Voice. The one and only Mark DeCarlo from the Travel Channel joins me each and every week. This is the funniest hour of the week, and there's nothing I like more than eating than laughing. I always love this week. It has nothing to do with the fact that we've just recently celebrated our birthdays on the same day. My virtual twin, Mark DeCarlo, welcome back.
So good to be back with you, Jennifer. I missed you. Been gone about a month. So
I know.
It's good to be back on the road.
I've missed you. So listen,
I know.
You're taking us to a place where there is a life-size Noah's Ark.
Yes. Actually, there's two places that are about 40 miles apart. The Noah's Ark experience is in Kentucky, and then about 40 miles away is the Creation Museum. And one of the not a caretaker, but one of the people that works for the group that maintains the museum and has built it is with us today. Pat Kanuski, welcome to A Fork on the Road.
Hey, good afternoon. How are you guys out there?
Thank you so much for making time to be with us.
Oh, this is great. Great opportunity.
I love
So now, Pat,
Go ahead.
Pat, I went to Catholic school for 12 years, for grade school and for high school, and graduated. So I think I survived it. Tell us about the Creation Museum, where it came from, what it's about, and why it's important.
Okay. Ken Ham is our CEO. You may have heard of him, Answers in Genesis. Ken Ham came to the United States from Australia in 1987 to the San Diego area, and then linked up with a couple of his buddies. They came to this area just south of Cincinnati because they determined that within a day's drive is 2/3 of the population of the United States. So they wanted to be accessible.
Wow.
He always had a vision for a creation museum. That didn't happen right away, but he got support through speaking engagements. They published a magazine. All kinds of people got behind him. And the Creation Museum has been here for 12 years. It opened in 2007, just west of the airport up here in northern Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
And then about the time that the Creation Museum opened, the Ark Encounter vision was right on top of the to-do list. And they started getting support for that, started to see if it was engineering feasible, who's going to build this thing. God provided, as he always does. And that we broke ground at the Ark Encounter in the summer of 2014, and the Ark Encounter opened in July of 2016.
And
that's a life-size replica of Noah's Ark,
Yes.
correct?
Yes, it is. I mean, there's not a lot of detail in the Bible about the Ark, but we have the dimensions, 300 cubits long, 30 cubits tall, and 50 cubits wide. And I'm sure you know how long that is, right?
So,
I don't have a cubit.
Quick, do the math, Mark.
It's 510 feet long, 51 feet high, 84 feet wide. It's built 15 feet off the ground, and it's just a marvelous structure.
One of the things that's really curious to me is this idea that there are over 140 exhibits that are very immersive and that truly bring the experience to life. And like all great history experiences that let you, in a very contemporary moment, experience the physical, terrestrial walking through in the hopes that it will allow the attendee to become imbued with the feeling of what it must have been like to be there in that time. I've had people travel to the Holy Land and say it is the most powerfully and intensely spiritually moving experience, that the energy of just being there does a lot to make you imagine what it must have been like to be alive at that time. How can you explain to people, and how did you come to know that creating something as simple as a life-like Garden of Eden was really going to transport people to connect with the humanity of the stars of the Bible?
Yeah, well, it's our history. I mean, it's not a story. It's not a fairy tale. The flood account, Noah and his family, were real figures in our past. I mean, from those 8 people comes the 7 billion some odd folks that we have on the earth right now. It's part of history. You can trace it in the Bible back to then. And coming upon the ark, when you first see it, people's mouths just open wide because you have no idea how big it really is. until you get there. Pictures and videos and people talking about it don't do it justice. But when you get there and you see it and you walk through the exhibits on 3 levels, and you're going up the ramps like the animals might have, and you figure out how many animals were there and how did they feed them, what about fresh air, what about light, fresh water, things like that. It comes to life for you, and it moves people in ways that they didn't really expect. They didn't really know what to expect when they got there.
And I think there's some controversy about some of the content in the museum and in the Ark. Is that discussed at all in the museum? Well, we do present both sides. We put man's word alongside of God's word, and we pretty much, it's kind of like Fox News. We report, you decide. We're not going to cram this down your throat, but the creation side of it, God's word side of it, is the compelling side, and you just can't deny it after you see the evidence.
See, part of what makes this real is that there was humanity that went through experiences that created these narratives. And the beauty of it is this was not a time of alternative facts, right? I mean, that's the cool thing about it. This is just one of those experiences where people are like passing down the legends, and something happened, and you've made it possible for people to imagine.
Every culture in the world has a flood story.
Yeah, that's actually one of our exhibits. It's called Flood Legends, and we show a map where all the different, worldwide flood legends appear on a map of the globe, and it's compelling.
Patrick, let's talk about how people sort of find their way to you. Do people come with one expectation and leave changed from that original perspective? What's one of the most powerful things that happens for people when they come to your particular, let's just call it a roadside attraction, in theming with the show today?
Yeah, I kind of alluded to that before. When people, what you do is you come to a very large parking lot off of Interstate 75. It's right off the highway. And then you take a shuttle bus over. It's a mile ride to get over to the Ark. You're around this corner, around the bend, and the Ark is there. It appears in front of you. And just the reaction that people have, it's a wow moment. That's a wow moment. And then when they get on the Ark itself and they go to the center of the ship on deck 1 and they look up and they just see the majesty, this just majestic building that is a ship. It looks like a ship, but it's a building, and just the massive beams and the trees that are inside that make up the Ark. It's just, and then there, we do talk about Scripture throughout the Ark, as you can imagine. We proclaim and defend the Word, the authority of the Bible throughout the Ark, and then the Gospel is presented as well in several different areas, and people are really moved by that. That's the thing that really I enjoy the most about it, is how people are moved.
Well, and then you've got human beings doing human being things like sleeping and eating in these dioramas, and it's like, yeah, these are people. I mean, if there's any one thing that seems powerful visibly, it's that, these are people. Tell everybody where you are on the World Wide Web, and we want to thank you for being here with us.
AnswersInGenesis.org, CreationMuseum.org, and ArkEncounter.com. ArkEncounter.com.
Thank you so much, Patrick.
All right.
Thanks, Pat. I appreciate you coming on the show, and good luck with the museum and the Ark.
It's going well. We're exploding. We've had
hopefully
over 1
not.
million people come to the Ark.
I was going to say.
As far as the numbers of guests, we've had over 1 million people come here each year that we've been open. So the number just keep going higher and higher.
Is it possible to have a taste of the foods of biblical times there?
We don't do that. We haven't done that here. We do have an awesome buffet at the Ark Encounter. That place is very...
I hope it's vegetarian.
I was just going to say, it's got to be vegetarian. The zebra is delicious.
Be if you want it to be. That's right.
Thank you so much for being here with us.
All right.
This is a lot of fun. This is a lot of fun.
All right.
All right. So, Mark DeCarlo, you have taken us on a tour of some extraordinary and unusual places around the country on this, our road trip show. And I first of all, I can't imagine, how are these guys not making biblical times food? Like, can you imagine going to the Ark and being like, yeah, here, let's go to the concession stand and have a corn dog? Snap you back to reality.
The only food I remember from the Bible is loaves and fishes.
Well, that'd be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, like a fish salad of some kind.
Tuna fish sandwiches.
Yeah, I mean, I told Pat, I had 12 years of Catholic education, and I do take issue with some of the facts in the creation museum. What if God created man and intellect, what about Darwin's intellect and Newton's intellect and everything? But you know what? It's a big world, and there's enough room for everyone's beliefs, and that's why we wanted to, talk about all the things that we talked about today. The key is America. There's so many different little parts of America that the only way you could see them and experience them, in my opinion, is by road tripping.
Just
if you
get
fly
in the
over
car
them,
and
it's not
go.
the same.
Just get in the car and
get off the main highway, go to the Creation Museum, go to the Dumb Guy Museum. All these things are created by people that are passionate about something, and in that passion, I think, is entertainment and fun, and you meet people that you'd never meet in your own house.
All right, so I gotta ask you a question. If I gave you unlimited resources to create your own museum or roadside attraction, what would the Mark DeCarlo roadside attraction look like, and where would you put it?
Oh, wow. Well, I would probably put it in the Mississippi Delta, and it would be a blues museum. People think that the blues is kind of like an old art form that's not really speaking to people of today, but American music, jazz and blues are really the primary American forms of music.
You love
that
blues.
I do. And all the good stuff comes from the Delta. Food, music, it's the land, it's the earth, it's a lot of interesting stories are voiced in the music of the blues and out of New Orleans and that thing. I think that's an interesting place to get people who don't give a crap about the blues to come in and see that it really reflects American life over the last, 2.5 centuries. That's what I would do. And, of course, there'd be a batting cages there, too, because I like doing that.
And batting cages. Blues museum and batting cages like that.
And we'd have zebra pie, and we'd have lion creme brulee, and elephant tarts are delicious. But you want to share.
You would not. Now, listen, I got to ask you, in all seriousness, do you play an instrument, and do you actually play the blues, or are you just a lover and fan of the blues?
Primarily a lover and fan, but I also play a little bit of guitar and blues harmonica.
Really?
Yeah.
You know what? I'm going to play a little bit of Buck Garrett blues for you on our out cue music today, because we have a friend who's like one of the great harmonica artists of the West. And and knowing how much you like that, I'm going to play this for you. But I have to ask you. Oh, here it is. Here it comes.
You can feel it.
You can feel it, right?
That's the beauty of the music.
We might need to make this our Fork on the Road official theme music. What do you think? Yeah, I think that might be something we have to do. So, Mark, before we let you go, I want to ask you, what is the best thing you ate on your European vacation?
We were in Tuscany, and we were staying, my friend Adrian married an Italian woman, and we were staying with her parents. So we're staying with Nona in Saturnia, Italy, and she made us pasta one night. And literally, it was a couple bottles of local wine, her pasta with some cheese and olive oil on it, and it was just ridiculous.
Like the best thing you ever ate.
Yeah, on the trip, I would have to say that, or the peanuts on the plane. No, it was the pasta in Saturnia, Italy. Little parsley, little olive oil, little cheese that was made from a goat down the hill.
I'll give
really
you a
delicious.
goat down the hill. Mark DeCarlo, boy, it's good to have you back.
So good to be back, Jennifer. Thank you for having me. We're here every week on A Fork on the Road. Travel, eat, travel on your tongue. I'm Mark DeCarlo, your travel guru. She is James Beard award-winning food journalist Jennifer English. We'll catch you at A Fork on the Road.
Coming up next, our good friend, John C. Scott. When you get home today, do me a favor and hug your kids, count your blessings, and join us here again tomorrow for the Tucson Foodie edition of Around the Table. We'll be back. See you then.